Okay, so in this video, I wanted to talk. In this video, I want to talk about spiritual warfare. Um, I made a previous video, and in some instances, I really think that um, some of what you're going through isn't spiritual warfare. It's just people being assholes. But I guess when you really think about it, especially after the talk that I had with my aunt, she's really wise. Um, Seeing just things happening at face value, or taking things at face value, especially given the circumstances of life and everything like that, And by the circumstances of life, I mean being born into a world where you have no idea where you come from, um, and you're just subject to laws that you don't understand. Like, there's just so much we just don't know about life. And that's why it's really important to be, you know, to be kind and to be understanding and all those other wonderful things. Um, but, in other instances, it's also important to be strategic, uh, cunning, and a warrior. Uh, and for this video on the topic of spiritual warfare, we're just going to kind of just get right into it. I really don't do intros. I just get started. So I don't know why I tried doing an intro this time, but let's just get started. So I was talking with a family member of mine that I love and cherish and things like that, and she knew that for a while I was claiming that I was atheist for good reason. I did for a time, just kind of like, to be honest, it was more like I just stopped believing in the church, because for some time after I stopped believing in the church, I was still, talking to the universe. That's what I would call it, the universe. Um, but I just kind of had this idea of like how, when it comes to religion, all religions are just kind of like a way for people to explain the phenomena of good and evil in the world. Like, it's not even about they say the devil's in the details, and I think that when it comes to religion, that's especially true. The detail about how God looks, or whether she's a man or a woman. The details on how you need to, jump 3 times and clap your hands and wear your hair like this. All these little details that religions are kind of made up of. Those are just human human influences. Those are just lower vibrational influences. Um, but at the end of the day, no matter where on the planet, religion cropped up. And not only did it crop up, but this concept of good and evil, right and wrong, these fat forces, combating each other. These are these are just, it's almost as if it's just innate to us as humans, um, to recognize this. And in my life, I have personally had um, to deal with my own uh, conflicts with good and evil, right and wrong. Um, and for a time, on this channel, I talk a lot about narc abuse and gang stalking and things like that. And, uh, you know, I just sit there and I think about the people and things that led to those incidences. And when I think about it, it just, and not only when I think about it, but when I think about it in conjunction to what I talked about with my aunt, it just kind of took things a bit full circle. But let's get into some specifics and things like that. Um, my aunt and I, we were talking and things like that, and she was bringing up the topic of me and my stances on religion and things like that. Now, my stances have been changing and morphing, um, but yeah, just due to some experiences that I've had, I was just like, at the end of the day, a lot of this shit is just a little too, what's what I'm looking for, a little too calculated. It's just a little too the effort is just a little too like, I'd have to be a fool to think that people could move so uniformly and so quickly um in order to do what they're doing, you know. Um and I was a fool to think that. Um yeah, that's just kind of what it comes down to. Um and it's the same thing with a lot of you all. A lot of you guys are going through experiences that are just a little too intimate. They're a little too uniform. They're a little too that's what I'm looking for. They're just a little too calculated and organized. And it almost seems like everywhere you go, there's someone, trying to fuck with you in some way, or there's just something being done to fuck with you. Um, you could have all the windows boarded up in your house and still somehow a fly is getting in and you're just like, what the fuck? You could have what else is there? You could have no issues and then all of a sudden, your sink is flooding and all this other shit. When you start talking about this person and that person. There's just a lot of it's hard to see it because it's so human, the things that you're going through, or the reasons why you're going through what you think are the reasons why you're going through what you're going through. They're just so human that it's like, yeah, no, this can't be this can't be some supernatural being, because who the fuck would care about, you know, me doing this, or who would care about, you think about, and it's just like, with me. And I always bring this up because I think it's a very poignant point. And that's that I've had instances in my life where people were just showing their ass, or they were just being their lesser selves, not even showing their ass, they're just being annoying or things like that. And I never once thought to myself, oh, let me be just as horrible, or oh, let me, do this, that, and the third. Um, but but at the end of the day, so yeah, at the end of the day, I didn't, I wasn't trying to be there. I wasn't trying to be their judge and jury. I just didn't like what they were doing. I didn't like their actions. And I was just like, yeah, let me remove myself from the situation. Let me remove myself from the scenario. That's just kind of always been my move. Um, but this world is constantly trying to get you locked in combat. It's constantly trying to get you fighting. It's constantly trying to, get you angry and riled up and all this other bullshit. Like, it's just constantly trying to just use you as some type of vessel for enacting. And this is why I bring up the whole agents of chaos and things like that. Um, I guess I call them agents of chaos, but the church calls them demons, like. But at the end of the day, it's just, a rose by any other name is just as sweet. And these demonic entities by any other name are still just, fallen angels. Um, and yeah, I was talking with my aunt, and we were talking, and she was like, she was questioning whether I was still an atheist or not, and I was like, my perspectives are changing, and she was telling me about how just about how she just brought up one of the common arguments. I didn't bring it up myself, but she was just bringing up a poignant rebuttal to some of the common arguments that people make against things like religion and stuff like that. And she was talking and she was saying, she was just saying that that there that this world, was created by God, and God gave this world to man. It was kind of like our birthright. It was our gift. You know, and He made man and woman to be together and things like that. But man had other plans and had decided that hey, I'm going to trade this world for what this serpent has to offer. Trade this world for I'm going to trade what God gave me for what the world can give me, or for what this serpent can give me. Because the world was for God created the world, gave the world to man, and then man gave the world to, Satan in a trade. Like, hey, let me be like God. Let me be like God. Let us be like gods. You know. And of course, a lot of this stuff is metaphorical, and I'm gonna get into the whole metaphorical aspect of it too. But just yeah, so that little transaction. So what we have here now is a world that belongs to Satan, and that and he's trying to use this world as a way to mimic what God already did. But of course, he's no God. He's not God. He just can't meet the same standards. He just can't, he can't do it like God can do it. God gives and it just keeps on giving. It's eternal. Satan gives and it's just temporary. It's like everything Satan does is just temporary. It's almost like it's not even real. It's just a mirage. It's like, building sandcastles. Satan is building sandcastles and God is building castles of stone, and she's just making things more God is like a woman giving birth, and Satan is like doctors trying to create artificial wombs. you know God is like woman and Satan is like men trying to be women. um trying to do everything the woman can do through means outside of that. um but once again, we can get into the whole metaphoric metaphorics of it all, and just kind of talk about how and I want to bring up the reason why I had the whole you're not going for spiritual warfare, you're just dealing with psychopaths. And that's because it's important to understand how it is that like the Bible, not all of it is meant to be taken literally. But like it's that's just kind of what writers do. Writers sorry. Writers, the whole point of storytelling is you use metaphors in order to um, make certain comments that if you stated them too plainly might get you killed. Back in the day, being a writer, saying certain things like that could get your head chopped off, that could land you in prison. um, and nowadays, things are different, but when you're reading older books, it's important to know that back in the day, you said something to piss off the king. You wrote something that's influencing people too much in a way that the king doesn't like, and then some shit could happen to you. Um, and so I, and especially considering just how many hand passes went over the Bible and how many changes were made to it. And like the dove in the original version of the Bible, it wasn't a dove that went out to get that Noah sent out from the ark in order to determine if it was okay to come back to land. It was actually a crow. It was a blackbird, a crow, you know. Um, and there's just a whole host of other things. Like the Bible just has gone through transformations, and there's just people in this world that are hell bent on muddying, transforming, or like I said, the devil is in the details. All that extra shit in the Bible, all that extra shit in the Ayurvedic text, all that extra shit in the Torah, all that extra shit in the devil is in the details. All that extra shit is just that. It's extra shit. Um, you know, take the meat, spit out the bones. All that details and stuff are just bones. Um, but at the end of the day, what is true is that there is this there are good forces in this world and there are bad forces in this world. You know, you kind of go back to Zoroastrianism with that whole thing. Um, and these humans can channel these good or bad forces. Um, and these good or bad forces can influence they can influence the human realm. Um, but they're spirits, so they need your 3D body to do it. Um, and there's just some people that are more negatively influenced by these dark and evil forces than there are but yeah, there's just more people influenced by these negative and evil forces than they even realize. And so where I'm going with this is just that just as God works through people, um, God works through people, the devil works through people. And he can work through you, you know. Like I made an analogy in some of my old video about these agents of chaos and about how they sit there and they try to lock you in combat with them. And if you keep, you know, and some of these rams, you know, like it's like these rams, you know, and they sometimes when they battle, they headbutt each other, and then their horns get stuck, and then they die stuck like that because they weren't able to untangle their horns, and this is kind of like what the devil likes to do to you. He likes to get you locked in these combats, and he likes to get you riled up and angry and all these other things, and he does it through people. He does it through bureaucracy. He does it through all these other things. And don't get me wrong, some challenges are meant to, you know, make you stronger. Some challenges are meant to grow you. But there's a difference between abuse and growth. And there's a difference between challenges that are meant to grow you and then challenges that are just straight up abuse. And what a lot of you guys are experiencing is, you know, just pure unadulterated abuse. And that's demonic. Um, that's not normal. That's not healthy. Some of you guys are literally being driven insane out here. Like if you look at some of these gang stalking videos, like gang stalking is no fucking joke. But that shit it's demonic. It's it's evil. It's not it's just not right. And it's something that's accomplished through people that just let these dark forces control them. You know, I had my moments sometimes where I was just so angry I thought I might just snap or just lose myself in the rage, and it's just At one point, I was just like, no. And I actually prayed to God, and I was just like, no, this isn't me. This isn't normal. This isn't, like, there's just something off about it, in ways that that are just inhumane, and that just aren't human. Um, and I was just like, yeah, no, I'm not, I can be stubborn. I can be proud. I can be a whole host of things. I'm not perfect in any way, shape, or form. Um, and I ain't the brightest, but I ain't stupid either. And you know, I just recognize when I just can recognize when I can just do things like not believe nothing I hear, but in half of what I see, and and what I from the half of what I'm seeing, it's like I can just see things for what they are. And I've just had some experiences that have just made me go, okay, say what you want to say about them, but at the end of the day, this isn't this isn't normal. This isn't regular. This is demonic. It's evil. It's just evil. It's just straight plain evil. Um and so yeah, just reached a point where I'm just like uh where yeah, I was just but I was talking to my aunt, she just said some things that just resonated with me. And I thought I'd share them here because this is just kind of my way. I hope to do better videos in the future, but I feel like anything worth doing is worth doing poorly. Like I just took that phrase and I just kind of ran with it. Um, and so yeah, this video is just kind of a way for me to just do something or share something, and and then go on with my life about that. But yeah, so I've just been. I just came to recognize. First of all, I have a very strong foundation, a spiritually strong foundation. I grew up in the Catholic Church. I was so deeply religious. Um, I held very deep convictions, um, and then I, got depression because I had left my home very abruptly, and my world changed, in many ways for the better, but in a lot of ways for the worse. Um, and that put me in a world of hurt, and I didn't necessarily have the tools or whatever to be able to understand what I was feeling and going through. And then it made me question, this, that, and the third. I was gaining so much information. I learned so much. Um, and that was beautiful. It was honestly beautiful, all that information I gained. But at the end of the day, something that I always bring up on this channel is that knowledge and wisdom just aren't the same thing. Um, and if we're gonna, put them against each other and see which one is better, wisdom will beat knowledge hands down, every single time. Um, and so yeah, I spent so much of my life acquiring knowledge, and now I'm at a place where I'm beginning to acquire wisdom. And knowledge will tell you that that knowledge will tell you um, that some secret governmental forces are shooting you with energy weapons in order to, control you and all this other shit. And then wisdom will tell you that's spiritual warfare. That's that's the great evil in this world, working through people in order to uh, sabotage your growth. In a previous video that I made that actually got taken down, and I actually want to talk about a lot of what got taken down in that video here and right now because yeah, fuck them. but but yeah, in that previous video I was talking about C19. Um and I was talking about how, you know, if you haven't been hit with the ouchie fauci, either naturally or, you know, through pins and needles, you shouldn't, you know, try to, you know, stay away from that stuff as much as you can, meaning don't get vaxxed and don't catch COVID. But if you happen to be someone who has either of those things happen to you, you need to go on a low keto diet and go see a cardiologist about myocarditis and a host of other things, because they're ultimately just trying to it's, you know, it's like that quote where Einstein was like, I don't know what weapons World War III will be fought with, but World War IV will be fought with, you know, sticks and stones. And to that response, you know, I'd say well, Einstein, the answer you're looking for is biological weapons. You know, World War III it's already it's been started. You know, it started in 2020. Um, and no, it's not the Russian Ukraine issue. It's the biological warfare that's going on through these vaccines. You know, it's just, they say that high blood pressure is the silent killer. And what these vaccines do is they weaken your heart and they dysregulate your body's ability to be able to control your blood pressure. So ultimately, it's kind of like it's just like a way to give you the silent killer, even if you're healthy. Um, and so what happens is you millions of people are going to die, and millions of men, women, and children are going to die suddenly, um, and you know, at random stages and things like that. And it's just a way to commit genocide without going to war. In fact, profiting in ways, you know, you couldn't even profit with war. Um, so that's what this whole thing is about. Look up Dr. Bird. I'm going to put some things in the comments. And Dr. Fighting Chance. It's really gross with some people. And it's really gross what some people have to say. Um, like sometimes, you know, while I'm going through the spiritual warfare, I'll hear people say some weird shit like, "We're all dying anyway. We're all gonna die. I guess this person just wants to die healthier. You know, we're all dying. It's about what you're experiencing while you're here. You know, it's just about the time that you're here. You know, and this other sadistic psychopathic shit. And I'm just like, it doesn't matter if we're all gonna die anyway. The fact that these people think that they can just rush along someone else's clock, or that they get to decide when you die, like that's just gross. Like it's extremely gross and disgusting and immoral in ways that I can't even begin to the ways that I just can't even begin to comprehend. And once again, it's because these evil forces, these evil entities, like they're not these evil people, they're not all the way there. Um, and in every generation, I'd say this kind of thing just happens. Um, you know, not even yeah, it's just there's always something that's just some great calamity that's happened. I've been on Earth for only 25 years, and already I've dealt with so many displacements in my life. There was Hurricane Katrina. Um, there was being, born with asthma. There was, now I have then apparently the stock markets crashed in 2008, and I was too young by then. And then on top of that, now I had a period of peace, but now we have this whole pandemic happening and all this other shit going on, and it's just I see now that in life, um, the devil is just, or these the darker entities and forces, they're just always, you know, taking advantage of either natural calamities or creating calamities in order to destabilize and just acquire more people for their side. And this is the reason why in my other videos I always preach about things like compassion and doing the work and healing, because none of us are perfect. We really aren't. But there comes a time when you just decide, like, is this going to be my life or isn't it? Um, and yeah, I've just decided, like, like, no, this isn't going to be my life. I'm not doing this shit anymore. I'm not going into these useless combats with people. I'm not spreading more, spreading all these other issues and things like that. And honestly, I've never been the type of person to like spread or start conflicts and things like that. I've really just never been that type. Um, like I said before, whenever I don't like someone or a situation, I just remove myself. Um, but um, but lately, and that's the thing about spiritual warfare, is it kind of puts you in situations where you don't get to. It's almost like you don't get to ignore it, um, or remove yourself from the situation. And in those instances, those are the really challenging ones. Um, but you got to see it for what it is. You know, it's just it's just those it's just those dark forces, and it's just those people that are being controlled by those dark forces. It's just those people um, that are trying to assist um, the great dark force. And back to what my aunt and I were talking about, uh, when you think about this life, people they always have this saying of "as above, so below," and this idea of there being this other world, like this world but not this world, and and you got to think to yourself, like, yeah, you're human, you're in the flesh and things like that, but there is but this world is very imperfect. you know it's almost as if this world is just, like I was saying earlier, the devil's way of trying to recreate um, the spirit world, but with this world. Um, and there was a time when it was perfect, um, but yeah, it's just there's just these there are just these dark forces that are constantly trying to mimic um, these low vibrations that are constantly trying to mimic higher vibrations. And doing that it'll just constantly result in problems. You know, it's kind of like how majority of the health problems that we have today, um, are created by the fact that we consume foods that weren't even a thing even 100 years ago. For so many of us, our diets are just so horrible. We eat so much synthetic food. We eat so much synthetic. Everything is just synthetic, 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 removed from its original source. While of course the wealthy get to eat the original sources and they know the real deal. Um, but for us, it's almost like it's just, yeah, it's like we're born into this not only spiritual poverty, but this material poverty, and this informational poverty as well. Um, but yeah, I just and this is really lazy, so I'm probably not gonna remake this video, but I just wanted to begin talking about the fact that there are forces at play in this world, um, that we can't necessarily see or understand, and they can influence this world and people and even you. Personally, I've never done tarot. I've never been into astrology or things like that. I've never, what's the one before? I never was into I was just into like meditation, like Buddhism and things like that. Like I've never really been the type of person to be into things like to be into things like I just never been the kind of person to be into all that other shit that people are into or that people claim that they're into or whatever. I don't know. That stuff has just never been. It's just never been me. But but I do recognize that it exists. I do recognize that people are into stuff like that. And look, if you are, like, I don't really know the spiritual aspect of those things. I couldn't tell you. I just couldn't tell you about those things really. But but even as someone who was just into Buddhism and Stoicism and things like that, I can just even then I still understand that even then I still understand that there's just a difference, um, that there's just this effort by forces you don't even understand or couldn't even begin to understand to just take you lower and lower and lower, and you have to fight against these forces, but you don't have to do it alone. You know, just as there are great bad forces, there are great good forces. And I think that, for Christians and for Jews and for, Taoists and all these other people, just their way, well, some of them are philosophers, some of them are, religions. Some of them are philosophies and some of them are religions, but their way of explaining that is through their religion or their philosophy, their way of talking about and explaining these forces that are very real is through that. And it's very apparent that no matter where you go on the planet, there's the great good force and then there's the great bad force. And in Catholicism and other Roman and other you know uh, Abrahamic faiths, we call the good force God, um, and we call the bad force Satan. And just, yeah, you can call, and we call the helpers of the bad force demons, and then we call the helpers of the good force angels. And and it's just I've reached a point in my life where I realized that that yeah, these I was being protected by a good force. Um, and then I left that good force, not necessarily to, like I haven't done any crazy shit with my life. I really haven't. I know when people do like rebellious stuff, they're like, I don't know, like I just feel like some people just have, more wilder stories than me. Um, I was never a Satanist. I never got joined a cult. I never was a part of a compound. I don't know. I just learned about Buddhism, and I just like that one more. And my life hasn't been filled with I mean, it's been pretty like these negative forces have been trying to push me farther and farther off the edge, and things like that. But but yeah, no, I just don't. I'm not allowing them to do that. Um, I just reached a point where I recognize it for what it is. Like I see you, evil spirit. I see you, Satan. I see you, darkness. And you don't get to have my heart. You don't get to have my soul. Um, you know, and that's another thing that's really important to know about spiritual warfare is that you have power. Then there's someone else with greater power who can help you, and you need to tap into and call on to that higher and that greater power, because you are just flesh and you cannot handle your flesh and bones just aren't made to handle these spiritual forces. They're just not made to. And that's another thing that I was having a good conversation with her, and not only her, with my sister as well. Um, but we were talking about how when it comes to what's what I'm looking for, we were talking about how camouflage. I remember my sister, she was saying some things, and she was just like, or who I think was my sister. We were just talking on the phone. She was just saying some things, like uh, she was talking about how important it is to camouflage in this world because the earth is, you know, the earth is it's the earth, and things that aren't natural, the earth tries to purge itself of. And humans are meant to be humans. They're not meant to be gods. They're not meant to be, these interdimensional beings. You're meant to be a human. And when you put things in your body that aren't of the earth, don't you know that that's where all these cancers are coming from? When you start trying to be more than just a natural human, these issues start cropping up. I had that conversation with her, and of course, you can kind of extend that into conversations about trying to be more than human or just spiritual and things like that. And she was like, if you want to sit there and be spiritual and all this other stuff, or dally in between worlds, then just go to the next one. Just go. Like you might as well just kill yourself and go off to the next one because here is for Earthlings and it's for Earth. She was saying that and stuff like that, and that was one conversation. And then I was talking to my aunt not too long after that, and I was asking her about, because, she lived her life, she had her days, her hippie days and things like that. And it's really great being able to talk to her about just, regular life. 'Cause honestly, when you're younger and you're talking to adults, they're always talking to you from a place of like, as if they haven't done that or they haven't been there. Like, did you sleep with someone? How could you? Sex is only for marriage. And they were back in their day, they were doing this, that, and the third. Um, but it's just always not. But you're a kid, and they don't need to. They really don't need to talk to you about this, that, and the third. But yeah, it's just yeah, you just reach a point where you're just like, yeah, yeah, you just reach a point where you're just like where you're just like what's the word I'm looking for? Where you just well, yeah, the world kicks your ass enough time, and then you're just like, something different here, And she said it when she was living her life and doing her thing. She she had her experiences where she was like, okay, I've had enough of what life has to offer me. Now I want to know what you have to offer me. And and sure enough, she said what God gave her was better than what this world gave her. Um, and I believe that. So, oh yeah, and they were talking about and the reason why that connected with the other conversation was that in this other conversation, um, she was telling me about how she too never really dabbled in, I don't know, that really intense otherworldly stuff. And she's the one who made that whole point about the human body not being in just this three-dimensional world, and just being human in general puts you in a state where you're just not made for dealing with all those dealing with those great spiritual forces. Like, you're only human. You're not a god. You know, you're not any of those things. So you need to be careful. And and so yeah, that's just some wisdom that I got from her. Um, yeah, that's just some wisdom that I got from her, from them. Um, yeah, it just helped me to recognize the importance of just living my life and just living this life in general. Um, and living it simply, and just accepting your place and just accepting your place in the order of things, like stop trying to be a god. I remember when I was, and I guess I like to talk about why this is so profound to me and things like that. And that's because there was a time when yeah, like I said, I was deeply spiritual and religious and things like that. And I had just reached a point where I was just, where one, I was questioning what it is that, I was going through and stuff like that. Or not questioning what I was going through, but just questioning my beliefs and faiths and things like that, which I think is completely normal and healthy. But I was just, going through my questioning phase. And while doing that, I was also taking classes, and I just kind of would do this thing where I would, at night, uh, do like, I would just focus really hard on what it is that I want to know. And also, I do this thing in school where I was doing kids' homework for money and stuff like that. And, if people in the beginning of the school year, they are always on fire, like, oh, I'm gonna do my work, I'm gonna do my work. But then, towards midterms or towards the end of the semester, all of a sudden I would have this influx of customers because then they realized, like they weren't going to be doing their work actually. And so I would start doing their work, and I would have, like 5 essays to write all at once. Because that's what I would normally get. Normally people, they would do the work, but they would just pass me their essays. So I had to find a way to write 5 different essays on the same topic using their language and their, in a way that would make it seem like they wrote it and not I wrote it. And I would have a system where if you wanted me to write an essay, you need to give me an essay that you already wrote. Um, and I just had my own little system going. I needed something that they previously wrote, and I needed to know like what their topic was and all these other things. But yeah, doing that is a lot. And something that I would do to help me is I would focus on what I wanted to on the subject, and then I would just fall asleep. Um, and then after doing that enough times, I just started having these dreams where I was kind of like doing the work, but in my sleep. And that was really profound to me. I was just like, wow, because like I had to write an essay and I was just like sleep, and I was in this woman, or it was like a shape shifting teacher. I don't really know what the person was, but just teacher was would help me write the essays, um, in my dreams and things like that, like telling me word for word what to write. And the thing is, like when I would look at the paper, the words were not staying, they weren't consistent. I would write, but then if I looked down and then I looked up and then I looked back down, the words would be wrong or they would be gone. And I was telling this teacher, like, the words are going away. And she's just like, it's okay. Um, just repeat, just keep repeating it until you memorize it. And so in a dream, I just had to keep memorizing whatever it was that we wrote, like just, or whatever she was telling me. We would just go over it line after line, again after again. And then I'd wake up and I'd have it remembered, and then I'd write it, and then, And I remember one dude, he wound up getting best paper or best essay. I was like, fuck, that was supposed to be me, like, but anyways, but yeah, um, and then other stuff started happening too. Like I just started getting really into the whole aspect of like dreaming and consciousness and deep dreaming and what you can, the limits that I can push my mind and things like that. And while I wouldn't call it demonic necessarily, I really wouldn't. Especially considering I recently learned about a man who was very similar to me, Casey, what is it, Edgar Casey. I just recently learned about him, and I was just like, hey, his life sounds a little similar, like, but and he was, a devout Christian and things like that, and it was just, I say that, but it got me to a point where, because sometimes I would have my own experiences with lucid dreaming and things like that, and I was just like, it got me to a point where I was just, especially while I was an atheist, I'm not anymore, but while I was, it just got me to a point where I was like, man, I wonder, like, I wonder what it would be like to be God, like I wanna, create my own worlds. I wanna do my own thing. I wanna put my own stamp on the world and stuff like that. But yeah, it's the age old tale of a snake tempting Eve with the ability to be like God, but what the devil gives is never. It's never. It's never worth it. So yeah, I just had my own little temptation moment of wanting to be more than, I don't know, more than human, more than, yeah, just more. But and I'm not saying that, because we read in the Bible all the time about people who were given these abnormal abilities that made them stand out from the rest, and they call those things gifts, you know. And I don't really think that what I was doing was the thing what I was doing wasn't evil, but it was just the thoughts that were being conjured up about me being, you know, um, and once again, like even though I was saying things like, "Ooh, I want to play being God," I wasn't actually like I don't want to I never in my life wanted to actually be uh, what people would traditionally call God. Like that was never like if you could. This is the reason why when I'm going through, like I know it's not God punishing me, or I know it's not coming from a place of love or a place of good, because if you could read my heart the way they say that God can read hearts, you would know that I didn't mean it in a literal sense. I meant it in kind of an artistic sense. Like creators are, like an artist is a god in a sense. They're a creator. They make something. They make something of value, and it's like a value that just keeps on giving. And that's kind of in the sense that I meant it. I wanted to create value. I wanted to be a creator. I want to be a creator. I still do to this day. Um, but I don't mean it in the. I don't want to, be the judge and jury of people. I don't want to, It was just never in my intention. That was never in my intentions or anything like that, ever at all. Um, and so that's why, I know that whatever it is I'm going through, like it's not, it's just it's like someone trying to tempt me to get to that point though, or trying to tempt me to get over the edge, or all these other things. Because at the end of the day, I remember, um, once again, these lower entities that entered my life, and I was once again, a deep religious person. And there was a point in time where I wanted to, have my own church and things like that. And by having my own church, I just wanted to be a priest. I wanted to be you know, I just wanted to walk down that path. Not start my own, church or anything like that. I wanted to have a church, as in be a priest, a Roman Catholic priest. I wanted to continue the faith in that way. Um, but once again, these lower entities, they were constantly, coming to me through people saying things like, "Oh, Jill, the reason you don't have a teacher," because I was talking to this person about, having a spiritual teacher and things like that. And you're like, "No, you haven't found a teacher because you're meant to be the teacher. You're meant to, create your own church or be your own blah, 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 or, have your own." And it's like, I'm not starting a new faith. I'm not starting a new church. I'm not about to teach anyone about spirits or spiritual. It's just, there's certain, especially when this is why I was an atheist too. And it's really funny because it's like, I just don't, like, I was against organized religion. Still am to a large degree, but it was just so funny hearing that, because I was just like, no, I don't do organized religion. I don't, not only that, but I don't have the wisdom nor I just have nothing to qualify me for what you're suggesting. Um, so why would I want to do that? It was just one of those instances. And it just, it was another thing that just made me realize, this isn't, this isn't right. This person is at a low state right now. To someone that I care about, someone I was close to. But at the end of the day, that, I don't know, that suggestion was just a little off to me. Um, because I don't do, um, I'm not a preacher. Or at most I would be a preacher, but I'm not a spiritual figurehead or authority. Like, I'm not about to go out here and start a new religion. I'm just not. Um, like, there's really, in many instances, there's really just nothing more to add to the conversation. You just either, you just, I wouldn't say you get it or you don't, but there's already so much great information out there. You don't need much more. And, and like I said before, like it's just this weird thing where I've just been, and it's so hard because sometimes you think to yourself, do they see something in me that I don't see in myself, or are they just trying to, big up my head for no reason? And the reason why I always go for the bigging up my head for nefarious reasons is because, like, you can be real with yourself. Like, I recognize my limitations. I just turned 25. Like, I'm sorry, but I don't have the life. I can't even be president. If I couldn't run a country, what makes you think that I should be, you know, the deciding people's, spiritual fates and things like that, or leading people in that degree? Like, it's just, once again, just the weirdest shit. But yeah, these are just things that I've learned, and things that I've just been experiencing and stuff like that. And once again, they're just these experiences that are kind of meant to, it's like they're meant to it's like they're meant to throw you off in these ways. They're meant to, It just kind of reminds me of when Jesus was in the desert for 40 days or whatever, 40 nights and 40 days, and the devil was tempting him with, oh, I'll make you the leader of my nations, or oh, I'll make you this, or oh, I can offer you that if you just do this, or if you just throw yourself from that, or if you just, do these things. And it's kind of like I've been for the past few years. First of all, I've had people trying to tear me down. Like I said, I've just been going through like mass narcissistic abuse, Uh, yeah, just en masse, like group narcissistic abuse. Some people just deal with an individual, but I deal with like a group. And then this group narcissistic abuse, it's like they've been trying to do things where they just they punish me for whatever reasons they think I should be punished for, and then they try to big up my head or big me up, and it's like they try to put me on these heights. First they tear you down, and then they put you on a height just to tear you down some more. It's just like I said, it's very low vibrational. It's very demonic. It's very evil, and but I've just been, I just haven't been, like I said, there's been some instances where I sit there and I try to. I think the only bait I've taken is just a fighting back bait, but you don't want to do that with these lower entities. You don't want to fight back when the devil, asks you to dance. You don't want to dance, thinking you'll outmaneuver him. No. Um, when a pig wants you to brawl with them, don't do it, because they'll just drag you in the mud. And while you're disgusted, they're enjoying it. And that's what these lower vibrational people, that's what these lower vibrational entities are just trying to do. They're just trying to bring you down in those ways. But I just reached a point where I was just like, yeah, no, I'm not doing this dance with you anymore. I'm not playing this game with you anymore. Not only that, but I have power and authority, and you don't get to, like, you don't get to control me or my life. Like, fuck you. My soul is spoken for. I'm baptized. I have a creator, and that creator isn't you. And you don't own my soul. You are not. Yeah, just know. And so I just say all this to say that there's just unseen forces in this world, and they work, just like how God works in mysterious ways, and the devil works in mysterious ways. And just as God uses people, the devil uses people. And yeah, I've just reached a point where I'm just like, I'm not about to well, first of all, I'm not going to go toe to toe with the devil alone. That's the great thing about spiritual community. That's the great thing about reconnecting, or just connecting more strongly with my faithful family, because they get to offer you that community and things like that. But but yeah, honestly, this has just been something that I just wanted to share, because it's just been something I've been thinking about. And yeah, uh, make sure that you guys like, if you're just dealing with conflict that's just a little too calculated, or it just seems so off, or things are just constantly weird, or you're or you're con- or you're constantly being put on heights just to be knocked down from them. That's probably low vibrational beings. That's probably happening because of people that demonic forces are working through. because love is never, like love isn't abusive. Love doesn't do this shit. Um, and and like I said, there are some conflicts that are meant to, like conflict is just a natural part of life. Just because you're a good person, it doesn't mean you're not going to have conflict in your life. Conflict, it's meant to test, and it's meant to, build character and things like that. But there's just certain conflicts that just aren't. They're just not. Like they're just not. They're just not right. Um, like I always think about that story about Job in the Bible, and about how apparently God and the devil made a bet to see if Job would lose his faith after being put through so many, horrendous things and whatnot. And it's a story kind of meant to encourage you as a believer to maintain your faith even when life is constantly knocking you down and things like that. And while I think this story is noble and things like that, it's also important to understand, you know, what um, what Job's conflicts were. Uh, and and when it seems like like I said, like some of these, it's just the nature of the conflict, and the nature of narcissistic abuse and the nature of gang stalking. Like it's just very demonic and very low vibrational. Um, and so in those instances, I just I think about Judas, um, and about how Judas was just this person who um, was purporting to be a friend in Christ, a friend of Christ, and a follower. But in reality, this was just a man who, in reality, this was just a man who was going to be Jesus's biggest, uh, uh, you know, just someone that was going to break him down or try to, his biggest deceiver. He was a deceiver. And and I always credit Kimberly, the gold standard woman, for this, because she gave a very she just gave a really good she's I just really appreciate the point that she brought up, because she was really brought emphasis to that part in the Bible when when Judas was about to turn over Christ, and about how he deliberated on it, like Judas turning in Jesus to the authorities. It wasn't something that he had, well, of course he premeditated it, but he had another moment before doing the deed, where he could think about his actions, or really think about what he was about to do. He really contemplated it. And I think, he contemplated it for like an hour. And it says that, in that hour when he was contemplating it, that's when the devil entered him. Um, and that line is always interesting to me. And that the fact that she brought that up was really interesting, because it just goes to show you, like, um, in this life, you just have opportunities. You have opportunities to turn back. You have opportunity, and when you do make the decision to make these negative it's just these people that choose to do these very evil or nasty things. They are they're it's like the devil has entered them. The devil has entered them, and it's through and their body is now a vessel for his, for his will to be done. And this is what you're dealing with when you deal with people that are being extremely nasty to you. Like, it's like something just takes over them, and they just kind of like, and don't get me wrong, there's a difference between things like everyone has little business battles, everyone has little conflicts and things like that. Like, I'm not saying that everyone you have a conflict with is like possessed, but when you're dealing with shit like narcissistic abuse, or when you're dealing with shit like gang stalking, these are the demon. These are the demon possessed. The these are the people that are they're evil. These are the dark souls. These are the people that, you know, the devil is working through them. Um and and yeah, it's just, I see why, so many people on YouTube, they're constantly like, oh, we're the chosen ones, we're the chosen ones, and things like that. And I'm always, I don't know, whenever people use that language, like being chosen or the chosen one, I'm always a little, in song, like when Kid Cudi say, it's cool and all that, but and maybe this is just me being a little too humble or whatever, but it just always feels weird to say chosen or to be chosen and stuff like that. Like, I just don't consider myself this chosen one, um, despite the fact that I'm going through a conflict that's so unreal. Most people think you've gone crazy if you talk about it. But this is the reason why I call it spiritual warfare, and they always say in the Bible, and I think I know why they say they're chosen. It's because it's like in the Bible, they say things like he never gives you more than what you can handle, or he never he never will give you he gives his hardest battles to his strongest warriors and things like that. And going and dealing with narcissistic abuse, and then to not even deal with just that, but then gang stalking, it's just like those are some of the toughest things you'll ever have to deal with in this life. And it's straight up demonic. It's almost like you're fighting, you might as well just be Nicolas Cage and Ghost Rider, like it's just, or Neo in the Matrix, that's just, or another analogy, if we're gonna keep, see how many I can make, drink for every analogy I make, or like Luke Skywalker against, the dark forces. But that's what it's like. Um, it's like you're being given one of the hardest challenges ever. And it's like, oh my gosh, like, I am not your strongest warrior, Lord. Like, what are you doing? Like, please don't, like, stop. If you are trying to make me a chosen one, like, just stop. Like, I'm not your strongest warrior. Um, you know, I but but yeah, but that's the reason why um I say the things that I say, or why I said what I said, and that's because it's like these dark forces, these people, it's like they allow these dark forces to be channeled through them. And that's kind of how I felt whenever I was going back and forth with these crazy making entities and these crazy making people. I was just like, it kept feeling like every time I engaged in combat with them, I was losing a bit of myself. And like they just had this endless supply of more tricks and sleep up their sleeves that they could just pull out. Like the nastiness in them knew no bounds, but it was just one of these lose-lose situations. And I was just like, yeah, I'm not partaking in this anymore. And that's just what that's just what the darkness does in this world. The darkness is just like all consuming, and it's constantly asking you to, it's constantly trying to take more and more and more from you. And and then, and like I said, there's people that allow that darkness to work through them. There are Judases in this day and age too. Um, and if you aren't careful, these agents of chaos, these people that have allowed darkness to work through them, they'll turn you into a dark worker as well, an evil worker as well. They'll make you so bitter and enraged and angry that like I always say in my other videos, look into reactive abuse. You become like them. Um, and you become extremely reactionary and angry. Like I was very angry for so long about what I was going through. I was just like, what on earth? Like I don't deserve, like what did I ever do to deserve this? Um Now I don't ask questions at all. And I always say this every video, so I'm going to say it this video too. Don't ask yourself why. If you're ever going through something like narcissistic abuse or gang stalking, there is no why. It's really it's just about these people that have allowed darkness to be channeled through them. It's about these darker forces that are trying to come at you. It's only about you in the sense that you're the target. You're probably a target because you're probably a decent person. That's probably why. Um, and the best villains are decent people who have been, pushed to the edge one too many times. If you ever look in anime, the villain always has this hopeful backstory of like trying to change the world for the better and all these other things. And it's just yeah, they become these grand villains, and it's because noble ambitions, people with noble ambitions, they and people that are willing to act on those noble ambitions, they just become excellent for for these dark forces to work through. They just they just work. Um, because there are people that are willing to do, there are people that are willing to act, there are people that are willing to put actions to their words, and people that are willing to put actions to their words, not only are they rare, um, but they make great heroes and they make great villains. um, and if you're someone who's decided in this life you're going to put actions to your words, you're going to try, you're going to do this and that and the third, um, the darkness is going to come for you, and the light, and the light. Because I will say this, all my life, I've had people trying to make me last, or put me down, or just a host of other things that are just meant to crush my spirit. Even before I was going to school, I love my grandmother, and and for a while I held some resentment, but I've let go of that resentment. And I hope she's in heaven. I hope she's happy. I hope she's safe in that other world that she's in. I no longer hold the resentment. But yeah, when I was younger, she just wasn't the best to me. And in fact, she was deliberately, oftentimes her worst self to me, before I was even school going age. Um, just a toddler. Uh, and and the reason I even have any of these core memories is because of the fact that she it's just because of what I experienced at her hand and things like that. So yeah, I just said all that to just kind of say, like just that I get how this world can just be extremely cruel to you and try to turn you into just this lower being, lower force. Um, but even when But just because people are allowing darkness to be channeled through them, you don't have to, allow darkness to be channeled through you. But once again, it's not evil to be a warrior. It's not evil um, to be, uh, cunning, to be smart, to not take disrespect or things like that. A lot of times people think that passivity means being good. And it doesn't. Being passive in the face of evilness is almost as bad as being evil. Um, so there's that. But yeah, I just want to make this video about spiritual warfare because yeah, it's a real thing. Um, and just because there's a human face in front of you while you're going through your suffering doesn't mean that there isn't something behind that is that's pulling the strings.